What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today when I talk to you about SoFi. Absolute crazy day. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what really moved it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did close in the red 2.17%, but then again, based on what came out, that was somewhat anticipated. 2043 the low, 2198 the high. So it did recover fairly well from, I guess, the lows. And even during the overnight, I believe it hit like almost 20, like low 20s. So give yourself a shout out if you did buy, but a lot of volume today. 166 million shares being traded, 80 is the average. Only thing that really came out today associated to SoFi ultimately came out overnight last night, and that is just them announcing the pricing for their issuance. So 71.9 million shares at a price of $20.85. Normally what does happen is whenever a company announces their price per share for the issuance, stock price tends to gravitate towards that and pretty much stay there, at least for the majority of the day. But in SoFi's case, it did move higher. And in my opinion, I think that is because of a certain level of optimism, because I think generally speaking from their last earnings, they have 2.1 billion in cash and cash equivalents alone. So when it comes to that, they have more than enough cash for their operations. So I think a lot of people are now starting to speculate on what that does truly mean. What do they need this extra 1.5 billion for? And I'm pretty sure the consensus is that it is a acquisition in regards to some sort of cryptocurrency exchange. So I think that'd be a pretty good thing for SoFi, really expedite that, and maybe that's why they haven't really given a actual date and time of that, because in the earnings, all Anthony said was that it's coming in 2025. But possibly it might actually be announced fairly soon. And what I mean by that is normally whenever Anthony does participate in a fireside chat, it's generally announced ahead of time. But there was one thing that came out 5 days ago. I've brought this up already, but SoFi Technologies is going to be meeting with JMP in Boston. So this is going to be tomorrow, so on the 31st. So potentially this might coincide with some sort of big announcement, because this is definitely off of SoFi's spectrum of what they typically do. So I think just so many abnormal things are happening in a short time span. It's just very, a lot of speculation, of course, but I think, again, the consensus is that the big 1.5 issuance, on a side note, it is a S3, so it's a shelf offering good for 3 years, but that 1.5 billion is going to be for a acquisition. So market generally did accept that as a kind of a good excuse, if that kind of makes sense. And so this is why SoFi did kind of move up throughout the day. After hours, it seems to be very much moving because of big tech unveiling their earnings. Also Robinhood as well is putting out the earnings, and that seems to be a lot of volatility. So that should make for a very fun time. But aside from that though, we did also have a couple good data points. So earlier on in the day, we had ADP employment and GDP both coming in absolutely on point. So amazing stuff for that. The only negative was Powell. So of course there was no cut. I think we generally all knew that, but I don't know if Powell was kind of using this as revenge based on everything that Trump's been kind of mentioning. But Powell really did drop the hammer, I guess, on the market, because he mentioned that there is a lot more uncertainties left to resolve, and it feels like there's much more to come. That is a big red flag as what the market did take. And generally, especially what Trump did mention last Friday, that he had kind of discussion with Powell and Powell was open to rate cuts. This comment was made, so they've made no decisions about September. So instantly this went from, I think it was like, what was it, 63.3 now down to 45.1. So there is a 45.1% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut now for September. So this is a pretty big shocker. So Powell didn't really benefit the market whatsoever today. So let me know your general thoughts on that. And then the only other thing I kind of wanted to bring up was this. So Crossroads posted this on Twitter right over here, and Anthony brought this up. So I was wanting to get your viewpoint. So he says, as we look further down the road, we see the potential to tokenize SoFi loans to make them more widely available in liquid markets and increments of dollars rather than tens of thousands of dollars. So I don't know how this is going to really play out, but I don't know. I kind of read this and I kind of feel dumb. So I wanted to get your guys' opinion. Isn't this essentially just a bond? So kind of tokenizing and investing in loans, that's just a bond, a fancy new age version of a bond. So is that what SoFi is trying to do, or what is your kind of viewpoint on this right here? Or maybe am I come kind of wrong as far as that? When it comes down to analysts, we did get a couple new ones today. So we got a 22 that was hold, TD Cohen. Analyst has a 71% success rating, 21, 25, 13 sell. I don't know what they're smoking, but KBW, Tim, who has a 61% success rating, which isn't all that bad to be fully fair. You had a $13 sell. Morgan Stanley, Jeffrey, 40% success rating. So that kind of makes sense. Obviously you should be working at like Burger King, McDonald's or somewhere, but I would have anticipated based on the home run earnings that there would be a little bit more bullishness. Again, we had one that came out yesterday, $27 and at 25, but still, I feel like a lot of them would have been like more associated to like the 27 plus. So interesting to see. Do you think that this is realistic? Based on some of the analysts that haven't given ratings yet, it probably will get another, I'd assume maybe like 4 possibly over the next couple of trading days. But yeah, definitely very interesting for that. When it comes down to shorts, they did wake up. For those of you that watch my channel every day, they haven't done anything in the last like 8 trading days. So today is the first day that they actually did break 1 million in either direction, either returning or increasing. So today they did increase 1.38 million shares, 11.75% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 128.47 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow minimum is back at being negative. This is the first time of that occurring in roughly around 5 days as well. So definitely interesting to see shorts waking up at the time they did. But today we had 60 million in calls, 21 million in puts, 44% of all the options being done were bullish and optimistic in nature. So I think SoFi, clearly people see a lot of substantial value in it, because I don't think any company would announce a 1.5 billion issuance and somehow be able to recover to the same magnitude that SoFi did. And not only that, but based on the options, people are anticipating further recovery. From the bulls standpoint, you still do see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 23 to, I'd say, like 24.50 range by the end of even this week. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub kind of all over the place for the most part. So $19.50 to, I'd say, $20 in reality. So they are anticipating a further breakdown, possibly because of companies unveiling their earnings or potentially data. But these are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So kind of mixed, some selling, some buying. So you can kind of see anything that shows as a bid is a sell, anything with an ask is a buy. So somewhat evenly divided today in all fairness, but a lot of transactions, as you can kind of see right here. Dark pool, very popular as per usual. Not crazy large transactions as yesterday, but still pretty good stuff. So 1.1 million. So whoever is doing that is buying into the, I guess, push higher after hours. 1.4 million, 1.3, 1.1, 1.07. So yeah, a lot of big money is still looking at SoFi. So definitely good to see. With it closing though at 21.87, it is right above this R1. So 21.86 is going to be that key pivot. So just watch for that, at least in the short term. And then 21.02 will be the following support. Flip side, 22.39, and then 23.24 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. So for whatever reason, if they actually do announce cryptocurrency tomorrow in Boston at JMP, and I'm making sure I say that right because I think I've said JPM in the past, but nonetheless, if they actually do announce that tomorrow, anticipate like a solid like 15, 20, 30% green day. That would be massive, massive news for SoFi, and which would cause people to pretty much accept this issuance. But aside from all that fun stuff, there hasn't really been all that much in news articles today, so I do anticipate probably more to come. But on the actual chart itself, it looks as though nothing really changed. So we're pretty much back at square one right before the earnings. So we kind of had a sell-off, push higher. So it's been a volatile 24 hours, but we're pretty much back at square one, except looking at the stochastic RSI, we are relatively oversold. So going into the next couple of trading days with all the big data and also big companies unveiling their earnings, that could really stand to benefit SoFi and really push it higher. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Give yourself a shout out if you did buy recently, if you sold, and yeah, what is your kind of thoughts on a acquisition? Do you think that is actually coming? And like I mentioned about this whole tokenization of loans, am I wrong to think that's just a fancy bond, or is that a new kind of thing, potentially new? So yeah, if that is new, then of course I think SoFi is trying to be innovative as best as possible. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think anyone's doing this kind of specific type of self-loan tokenization investing type of thing. So yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Let me know your thoughts. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.